Hi, welcome back. Today we'll be going over our Zoomorphic Sculpture lesson part 3. Materials will be as follows. Our sculpture, or paints, a glass of water, a pencil, paint brushes, and our newspaper. We'll be needing at least 2 sheets of glossy newspaper that looks as shiny as these two that I'm showing in the video right now to be used as our painting palette for today. We'll also be needing our masking tape. Now we'll be checking our sculptures. Make sure none of the tape's coming up in any of the spots and that all of the pieces are fitting together nicely. If anything's coming apart, it'll feel weird and be hard to deal with after we start painting our sculpture. So just go ahead and fix the tape now. In just a moment, you'll see me shake my sculpture. That's a good way to check that all of your taping is fitting together nicely and that while you're painting, nothing's going to come apart. In just a moment, we'll start painting, and I'll be using the Oaxacan style of painting like we saw in our PowerPoint. First, I'll be using my flat brush to cover the sculpture in large color blocks, just like we saw in the Oaxacan style in our PowerPoint. Be sure to try and cover your painting with as smooth a layer as possible for the first layer of paint. You'll need at least 2 layers to cover each color onto the sculpture, no matter what style your painting is. In just a moment, I'll be switching colors. Be sure to wash your brush very carefully and make sure that you wipe your brush off either on newspaper or an extra piece of newspaper on paper towels or an extra piece of newspaper to make sure that the colors don't blend and you get the color that you want whenever you apply your paint to your sculpture without any muddying. Unfortunately, my camera died right about here before I started the next step, which was separating my colors with a black line using my round brush. We'll now be moving on to painting patterns, starting using our filbert brush. Using the filbert, I'll coat it in paint and apply heavy pressure on at first, easing up on the pressure as I continue the line, so that way I can make the heart shape. I'll continue using heavy pressure and easing up on it as I make petals on the flower that surround the hearts. I apply heavier pressure when I first touch the brush to the figure, applying less pressure as I go on to thin the line and create a tapered petal shape. Here I'll apply pressure to the filbert and move it in a circular motion to get an eye shape for our bear. We'll now use our square brush to create large patterns on the back. For this, I'll be creating an amorphous blob, or a blob without any direct shape, on the back of our bear. I use our square brush and move it in a figure 8 shape, applying little lumps where I see fit to make each blob unique. Our sculpture is three-dimensional, so please be sure to apply patterns to all sides and underneath your sculpture. Now I'll be using my detail brush, which is this thin round brush, coating it in paint and creating thin lines around my blobs and my petals to create patterns. Using the same method as the filbert, we can make our lines thick or thin by applying more or less pressure. Using the same brush, I'll coat it in white and stipple or tap it across the legs of our bear to create a nice polka dot pattern. And there you have it. We've finished our bear in the Oaxacan style. For cleanup, I'd like you to go ahead and take your paint palette and fold in each corner towards the center. Fold it in half and then in half again, and you should be ready to put it away into the garbage. Remember that I'd like to see 5 colors and 3 textures or patterns for your animal, and I'll see you for our next lesson. Go on and show off your art to the world.